want to introduce Dan Marsden. Many of you will probably know Dan. Does a lot of work in the Moodle community and certainly knows his stuff. So it's very exciting to have Dan along and actually to get him to share about a lot of the stuff he does. And today it's on the plagiarism plugins. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Dan. Thanks.
Thanks, Shane. Hi, everyone. I presume you can hear me. Cool, great. As Shane mentioned, I've been a Moodle developer for a while, working for a Moodle partner called Catalyst IT in New Zealand, and I've been working on plagiarism plugins for a while. My first introduction to plagiarism plugins in Moodle was back in Moodle 1.5, and since then have evolved to various different plugins and improved them over time. So to just get straight into it, I'm going to go through a few of the plugins that are currently available in Moodle, and then I'm going to show you how some of them work in an existing Moodle 2.5 course. So there are, on the screen there, you should probably see there are a few different plugins listed on the documentations wiki in Moodle Docs. Crot, which is an open source tool, and it was originally developed using the Bing Search API, which is the Microsoft equivalent of Google. And when Crot was first developed, it was Bing was free to use, so they could break up the content of the submitted assignment into lots of chunks and then send those chunks to Bing and get a report back. But since then, Bing now charge for their API, which shifted to the Microsoft Azure system, and now charge for the API, and the cost that they charge per query makes the old code no longer viable. It's cheaper for you to use one of the commercial plugins than it is for you to use Crot with the new Search API. So what that meant is that it's kind of dropped off use a bit, and it's still around in the community, and there's a few people, I think, updating it so that it will just check internally a submitted assignment, so it won't do a web search, but it will do some comparison against internal assignments. And it's also supported by a company called Crot Software, who are developing a commercial version of their plugin, so you can still use their tool but pay for it and get the benefits of some of that. Compilatio is listed on the list too there on the screen. It's a plagiarism service that comes from France, as far as I'm aware, and is heavily used over there, but is also available in English as well. Moss is a programming assignment style plagiarism checker for programming assignments. People are writing code and then submitting them to their lectures for testing. So it's not for normal Word documents or things like that. Same with the next one on the list, the programming option. It's slightly more flexible. It lets you use a range of different programming plagiarism services like Moss and JPlag. So I'm not going to go into those, but if you want to know more information about it, have a look at the wiki pages and get more information there. Then we also have Turnitin, which is a plagiarism service that I'm sure probably 95% of you are all aware of. It's the largest English language plagiarism service available. And there's also Urkund, which comes out of Sweden and is the mostly used in sort of European countries, but is also available for English language countries as well. So I'm just going to whip into an existing course that I've created here to show you how some of it works. I've created some assignments, some workshops, and some forums, because you can use the plagiarism services in Moodle against a range of those different plugins in Moodle. Should also mention that Turnitin and some of the other plagiarism providers also have their own in-house developed plagiarism checking modules for Moodle, and they tend to be self-contained modules that you install and use separately from your existing modules. If you want to know more information, have a look at my blog or elsewhere. So we're just concentrating on the Plagiarism API services that are in Moodle currently. So I'll just look at a Turnitin assignment. This is a standard Moodle assignment in 2.3 or 2.4 or 2.5. And has some students that have submitted to it. So we'll just view the submissions in this particular course that I've pre-prepared. And you should be able to see eventually here when it loads. I'm just waiting for the screenshot to come up too. This is the standard assignment submissions page for Moodle. I'm still waiting for it to update there by the looks of it. And you can see that there are two students at the top, student 1 and student 2, that have submitted assignments. One has submitted a file called Olympics 2, which I think should be coming up on your screen now. And the other one submitted Olympics 2 as well. And straight underneath those file submissions, you can see this extra bit of text, similarity, and then about 100%. These particular files I've used before, so they're completely plagiarized, so they're returning a fully 100% plagiarized. In the case of Turn, we can click on this link and return a full report. That's open on your window, so I'm just check to see. I didn't test this before the presentation, so we'll see what happens. And this is logged in as a so this is going directly to the Turn site and loading a report about the file that this particular student has uploaded. And it will probably, hopefully, say where that file's come from eventually. I won't do this for all of the assignments, so we don't have to wait too long. So you can see on the left there's the actual file that the student has submitted. I'll just get rid of that initial screen. On the left is the file the student submitted, and on the right-hand side you can see where that particular file was previously submitted to that matches the fully 100%. And that's showing that it's been submitted to my test install previously. And you can use the standard Turnitin functionality here around grade mark and peer mark and some of the other features that they have that you may be aware of. And there are two there that student has submitted in the assignment module. So I'll just go and create a new assignment on the course homepage so you can see how it works. You turn editing on like normal inside the course, and then you choose to add an activity or resource to your course, and then you choose the assignment. Some of you that are quick might notice that I have the old Moodle 2.2 assignment installed on the site still active as well, but it works with both. You can use the 2.2 or the new assignment. And this is just the standard form you get when adding an assignment to a course, but if you scroll down slightly further, you'll see that there's some extra options here for the various plagiarism plugins that are installed on this site. So we're just looking at the Turnitin one for now. So we just expand that particular section, and you can see that you can enable Turnitin within this particular assignment by setting it to yes. You can choose whether to show the score to the student or not. That's the value that gets returned from Turnitin about how plagiarized it is, whether it's 100% or 10%. So you can decide to show that to them as soon as it's available, or when the activity is closed, when the due date is finished, etc. Same with the similarity report, the full report that you see on the Turnitin site. You can choose whether to show that to a student or not. And then some specific settings underneath related to Turnitin themselves. They have a bunch of settings inside their system that allow you to customize how the reports are generated and what to include in them. And I won't go into those now. And it just saves the assignment as per normal for the student. So then once that has happened, you can, I'm going to log in and show you process as per normal, if it will load for me. Seems to be going a little bit slow. I'm just going to go and log in as another user that hasn't submitted an assignment before. And I'm just going to check by going to the submissions page to get a student in the course. Apologies for the slowness here. This is running on a slower test machine. I should have shifted it to a slightly faster one. Yeah, so I'm just going to go and log in. using the login as link inside the administration block here to log in as this individual student. And then going into the assignment that was previously created. And then I can add the submission here, just like normal, and then it will, behind the scenes, send that file to Turnitin, and then return a report, and then the student can view it on this page here as well when they, if you enabled that. And now that I've done that, it might have been more useful to come back here. Sorry. So there are three different areas that currently the Plagiarism API allows you to enable Turnitin, or the Turnitin API, but the Plagiarism API, sorry. There's the assignment modules, as I mentioned before, and that's the old Moodle 2.2 assignment or the new assignment. And in the new assignment, you can also have freeform text when you enter text into the assignment rather than just uploading a file. That freeform text can also be submitted to the plagiarism service. The Urcond assignment submission page here I've got previously set up. I don't know if it will show me reports at the moment, but I'll quickly show this to you anyway. So this is pretty much the same as the Turnitin one, except it's now showing the Urcond report instead. You can have multiple. These particular assignments haven't been generated yet. The reports haven't been generated. I have a test account for them, so it doesn't run on their standard production environment, and the response time's a little bit slower. I've just triggered something here, so I just don't think the report's come back yet. And this is just adding an extra bit of information to the existing grading page rather than an extra column. It's just displaying the information straight underneath. And if I highlight over that now, it will probably say, it may pop up depending on how the screen here is working. So you can possibly see that icon that's come up with the help text saying that the file's been submitted and there's no waiting for the analysis. So we'll go back to the other ones there. I've also got a compilatio one there set up that's got some reports that I can show as well. You could theoretically have multiple plagiarism services set up on a single assignment, and it would return a report from each individual service. But normally you wouldn't be doing that because the cost would be higher than needed. So you can see these files. There's a report back from Compilatio saying it's 100%, and again, click on that link, go to Compilatio and get their full report. And again, I didn't test this before the presentation, so hopefully it should work okay. And this produces something similar to Turnitin and shows you where the sources are that contribute to this document and allow you to do a sort of a match side by side against where that text is. Again, it's just similar to Turnitin, but just in a slightly different way. And Urcond again provides similar services, just slightly differently. And after the assignments, you've also got the workshop module. If you're not familiar with the workshop module, it's kind of a peer assessment module. Allows multiple people to submit assignments and mark each other and manage sort of that. So we'll just have a quick look at the Turnitin one that's set up. You can see that there are 2 submissions down the bottom here. We've got one from student 1 and one from test 1 user. And if I click on that particular submission and open that up, it will show a similarity down the bottom right. And I'm not sure if you can see that, but that's saying it's 21% plagiarized, which would be a wee bit concerned because I think that's completely 100% plagiarized. So I'd expect a slightly higher mark there. The workshop module doesn't submit the content within the submission. So this content here doesn't get submitted to the plagiarism service, but if that was something someone wanted to add, it would be relatively easy to add in future. So I'll just quickly show you the other ones here as well. So the compilatio one should have some reports against it as well. And again, you can see that submission, there's one submission down in this particular assignment. If I click on that submission, you can see that there's, oh, it is actually, that's interesting. The Turnitin code isn't submitting the text to the plagiarism service, but the compilatio one is. So there might be a bug there on the Turnitin side that's not doing it. So you can see there's a plagiarism result here for this particular text of 25%, and there's also a report there for that individual file of 100%. And you can click on those individually and find out the full reports. So as well, we have Pukunui as well, but there's no reports there at the moment, so I won't show you that one at the moment. The other thing that's quite useful is that the forums. You can also use the plagiarism service in there as well. I'll show you the compilatio one for now because that's less. It's working a wee bit better, I think. So this is just a standard forum, and there are two discussions. One's being created by this user, and the other one's created by the other user. If we view the discussions, you can see that this particular user has put a bunch of text inside the forum post, and they've also uploaded a file at the top. So the film2.txt file has been analysed, and you can see there's 98% plagiarised. Hopefully you can see that on your screens. It's not too small, but that says 98%. And then scroll further down, you can see that the text within the forum post itself has also been submitted, and it has 100% plagiarism value as well. And again, those just work like the standard alerts. So you can go and find out where that information's come from, and you can see the full reports from the plagiarism service as well. And to set this up for forums is, again, this is as simple as it is for the assignment module. You just add a forum to the page. Turn editing on first. And so you just use the standard activity selector to add a forum, and then give it a name and just fill in whatever settings you want. And then if you scroll slightly further down, you've got some extra settings here that allow you to turn it on, for example, to start with, and then some specific settings related to those individual plugins, as well as when to show the scores and the similarity reports. So the way the API was designed was to make it really simple, just to add plagiarism services on the side of existing Moodle modules, rather than having a separate module that allows you to submit content. Just doing it within the existing Moodle modules and just adding it on. These particular plugins are all completely self-contained, so they don't make any changes to core Moodle code. The Turnitin, the compilatio, and the Urcont, and the other ones that are there as well. There's also another plugin called ePhorus, E-P-H-O-R-U-S. I'm not sure where that's from, but they've got a plagiarism plugin as well to connect to their service. But they just drop straight into the plagiarism folder inside your existing Moodle install, so you don't have to make any core code changes. And they also work with a nice plugin install that is now available in Moodle 2.5. So those are the basics of the actual using the plugins at the teacher level. To enable this in your site, once you've installed the plugins, you have to do a couple of things. The first thing you have to do is, under advanced features, you have to enable Plagiarism API because it's disabled by default. And you just scroll down and find enable plagiarism plugins, which is down the bottom here. Make sure that's selected. And then after you've installed the plugins themselves, they have a little bit of configuration as well. So once you've ticked that box and installed the plugins, you have this extra item in the admin plugins menu called Plagiarism Prevention. You can see I've got 3 installed here on this site at the moment. And you can see that, we'll go to the Turnitin one, there are some specific settings like the API address, account ID and password that Turnitin require. this information down here I feel it's quite important that students are aware that any file or content they submit is being processed by a plagiarism service. So by default, this is forced. So whenever you enable a plagiarism service within a module, this bit of text appears to the student on the submission page. So if they're on their assignment submission page, they click Add Submission. At the top of that page, this bit of information will appear and saying your files will be submitted to the Plagiarism Detection Service. What's quite good here is you can add extra information like links to your internal policies around plagiarism and some of those sorts of things. So you can customize this text. If you really wanted to, you could delete it and it just wouldn't display anything, but I think it's really important for students to be aware that their files are being sent somewhere. Just saw in the chat someone saying in Turnitin there's a setting that won't flag things that have been cited. Probably yeah, that's common for all of the plagiarism services I've seen. In the I can show you here. One of the other things you can do on the settings pages is set what default settings should appear when you're adding a module. So when you're adding an assignment, if you then view the Turnitin plagiarism plugin settings, what these default options are. And in Turnitin, there's an option here, exclude bibliography. So if you've cited things properly, you can choose to exclude that or include it in the plagiarism score. And then when you actually review the report, if you've decided to not exclude it and show any linked bibliography references, you can then exclude them individually on the Turnitin interface. Yeah, you can do that, exactly. You can do that in the report instead if you want to. But these are the default settings. So you can, what you could potentially do as an administrator of a site is you could force all of your assignments or all of your forum posts, which you probably wouldn't normally do, to use a plagiarism service so that your teachers can't change these things. So you'd set these to be yes, and you'd set all of these defaults, and then you'd prevent teachers from being able to change these, and it would just be on all of the time. But by default, it just lets you change it. It lets the teachers change it as they want. It's just flexibility there to allow you to do a bunch of things. Turnitin has a bunch of issues occasionally, so there's an errors page here that lets you see some of the errors that have been returned and sometimes reprocess them. There's also some code there to migrate old Moodle 2.2 assignments to Moodle 2.3 or higher, but it doesn't do everything. It only does part of the work. So if you're upgrading from Moodle 2.2 using my Turnitin plugin and going to 2.3, 2.4, and you want to keep the similarity scores attached to individual assignments, you need to do a little bit of other work, and contact me if you need help or need more information on that. So again, there's the other ones there as well, like Urkland has some similar sorts of settings. It has an API address, has a username and password that you use to connect to it, has the student disclosure, and then also on each sort of initial page, you can decide which Moodle modules you want to allow the plagiarism service to support. So if you only want to use it for the Moodle assignments, then you only tick the Moodle assign box on this page. So if you want to use it for forums and workshops, you tick these as well. If you don't tick these, when you create a forum, you just won't see the settings. So you must tick these boxes if you want the ability to use them in the workshop and forum modules as well. So that is a basic sort of run through. Does anyone have any questions? I'm just taking a quick look through some of the chat here. Yeah, Stephen, good point. It's just text messaging. Turnitin use a web search and they use a bunch of journal searches. They have access to a bunch of journals, and they also have the biggest amount of student submitted content in English because they're the widest used plagiarism service in English language speaking countries. They have a lot more content submitted by students. So yeah, you have to judge that yourself. Linking if you have other Turnitin plugins in your sites, to then use mine, you need to follow the install instructions. There are a couple of things you have to do. You have to send in an email. Free plugin, the only free plugin available is Crot, and it needs a lot of work, and it doesn't do a web search. It only does an internal content search. I have ideas around wanting to improve that a bit. I'm talking with a university in New Zealand who has students that do a project as part of their course, and I'm hoping to engage some students to work on a free plagiarism plugin that will be very basic to start with, but we can hopefully build on it. Any other questions? Anyone want to see anything specific that I've missed? Everyone's quiet. Are there many people using a plagiarism plugin at the moment, whether it be using the Plagiarism API or another plugin on an older Moodle version or an existing one? Anyone using the plugin that's not Turnitin? That'd be interesting, right? That's interesting. Using Turnitin but not in Moodle. Fair enough. It's do your teachers submit the content, or do you tell your students to go and create accounts and submit the assignments? Or are you using another LMS? Right, students do it. Should cover future plans too as well. There's a couple of different things that are happening at the moment with the plugins. The Turnitin plugin itself is something that I've been working on since Moodle 1.5, and it was the first plagiarism plugin I worked on. Since then, Turnitin have developed Moodle plugins themselves and have plans to implement a new backend API for Turnitin that is much improved and more features. And when they release that new API, they have internal development staff that are going to work on a new Turnitin plugin to replace their existing plugin that they've written, and also to replace the plugin that I've written. So hopefully the new plugins will be more feature-rich for them and support a wider range of their product set, but that's still in future. So my Turnitin plugin will be depreciated by their new version that will provide the same time frame. I don't know. There are some posts in the Moodle forum about from Turnitin that have given some time frames, but I can't comment on timeframes, unfortunately. Not in the recorded meeting. It's also future work for the Plagiarism API. I'll be interested in adding it to other Moodle plugins as well. But the main ones were the forum, the workshop, and the assignment module. Talked about the possibilities of adding it to the quiz module for essay questions, but there's a bit of work involved in that, and no one's volunteered to spend any money on it. I'm also interested in hearing from anyone using the forum or workshop module with the Plagiarism APIs, because I haven't heard of anyone using it, and it's been since Moodle 2.4. So I'd be interested to know if it's useful or if it doesn't do what you expect it to do. I'll continue to make my plugin work until the point that their plugin reproduces what my plugin does in an efficient way and we're able to migrate easily. But I expect that Turnitin may flick the switch at some point so that my plugin no longer works. because they control their internal API, they have the ability to switch it off and stop allowing people to use it. So I expect that they may do it at some point. Blog posts, is that what you mean, Frederick? Is adding plagiarism support to blog posts? Yeah, it could be. It's easy to do. There's even some documentation in the wiki, in the developer documentation on how to add support to other activity modules. But I have written the documentation too, so if you've got an internal development team that can have a look, the documentation might help. And if not, then get them to flick me emails and I can do what I can to help. And hopefully it'll work for you. I've gone pretty quickly. I think I've covered a lot of the main stuff. Yeah. Yep. Open API. For those that don't know what Stephen's mentioning there, the original code I wrote for Moodle 1.5 used what Turnitin referenced to the Open API. It was their first sort of public release of an API for other institutions to use, and so I used that for my early versions of the plugin, and then other people have also done the same thing. But they're slowly deciding to remove that because they don't want to support it too much longer. But hopefully the new API they're writing will be a lot easier to work with, and it will provide the same functionality we need. Yeah, thanks, Frederick. I'm really interested to hear how people are finding the workshop or forum modules, and as well as the assignment modules, but particularly workshop and forum. Some of this work was helped with a Google Summer of Code project. I had a student working with me last year who added support to the workshop and forum modules. Cool. Well, that's pretty much all I've got to talk about in terms of plagiarism prevention. I mean, I can run through some more examples here if people want to see them. Let me see if I can get those Urcon ones to come back. Not yet. Or the button at the top there. Cool. Thanks, everyone. I haven't got anything else here specifically, so certainly went a bit faster than I thought it was going to be. Feel free to ask any more questions. I'll hang around for a little bit more, but that's pretty much the presentation. Thanks a lot.
Let me jump in, and Shane here again. Let me just jump in and say many thanks, Dan. I was listening in the background there, and yeah, certainly enjoyed it. And I'm pretty sure, just looking at the chat, that yeah, there's a lot of questions and obviously a lot of comments. So obviously people interested in this. So very much appreciate your time. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks.